The stars looked different here. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the main screen of the UES Indomitable, watching alien constellations she had never seen before. Her ship was huge, almost 3 kilometers long, but right now it felt very small in the endless dark of space. Behind her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew they were in trouble. The ship's hull was damaged from the last battle. Several decks had holes in them. The engine room smelled like burned metal and fear. "Captain," said Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station, "we just crossed the border." Sarah nodded. She had known this moment would come. For 3 days, they had been running from the Devourers. Those metal monsters had destroyed everything. Her entire fleet was gone. 50 human colonies were ash and radiation. The only survivors were the 50,000 people sleeping in the cargo holds below. "Any Imperial ships on sensors?" she asked. "Nothing yet, ma'am. But they know we're here. Their border stations are sending signals." Sarah looked at the tactical display. Red lines showed the Zephyrian Empire's territory. Her ship was now deep inside it. She had just broken the most important law in this part of the galaxy. For 1,000 years, no human ship had been allowed here. The Zephyrian Empire was old, very old. They had been flying between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Their ships were everywhere in this sector. Their technology was advanced. Most importantly, they thought all other species were insects. "Ma'am," called out Communications Officer Park, "incoming transmission. It's from an Imperial fleet." "Put it on screen." The main display changed. Now Sarah was looking at an alien face. The creature had gray skin and 4 yellow eyes. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. This was Admiral Vextar of the Imperial Navy. Sarah had seen pictures of his species before, but never in person. "Unknown vessel," the alien said in perfect English. "You have entered Imperial space without permission. This is a crime punishable by death. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Sarah stood up from her command chair. She was tired, so very tired. But these people behind her needed her to be strong. "Admiral Vextar," she replied, "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We are carrying civilian refugees. We request safe passage through Imperial space." The aliens. 4 eyes blinked in what looked like surprise. "You know my name, human, but that changes nothing. Your species has no right to be here. You will surrender now." "I cannot do that, Admiral. These people have families waiting for them. They are not soldiers. They are just trying to survive." Admiral Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Survive? You primitive creatures barely know how to leave your own star system. What could possibly threaten you that would require fleeing to Imperial space?" Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "We call them the Devourers. Admiral, they are machines from outside our galaxy. They consume all organic life. They have already destroyed 50 of our worlds." "Impossible," the alien said. "Our intelligence reports show that humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. You have no real technology, no real weapons. What enemy could your pathetic species possibly face that we should care about?" The communications officer muted the channel for a moment. "Captain," he whispered, 3 Imperial Star Destroyers just dropped out of hyperspace. They're moving to surround us." Sarah looked at the tactical display again. 3 large ships were forming a triangle around the Indomitable. Each one was half the size of her vessel, but they had heavy weapons. More ships would be coming soon. She reopened the channel. "Admiral, I understand your position, but we mean no harm to the Empire. We just want to reach safe space where we can protect these civilians." "There is no safe space for criminals, human. Your ship will be destroyed as an example to others. Who might think they can violate Imperial territory?" The alien's image disappeared. Sarah looked around her bridge. Every face was looking at her. These young officers had followed her through hell. They had watched their friends die fighting the Devourers. Now they were trapped in enemy space with nowhere to run. "Orders, Captain?" asked Commander Williams, her second in command. Sarah thought. About the people below. Families with children, old people who had lost everything, scientists and teachers, and farmers who just wanted to live. They trusted her to keep them safe. "Bring the ship to combat readiness," she said quietly. "But do not raise shields or charge weapons yet. Ma'am, those Imperial ships have enough firepower to—" "I know what they can do, Commander, but maybe we can still talk our way out of this." On the tactical screen, the 3 Imperial ships moved closer. Their weapon systems were active. Sarah could see energy building in their plasma cannons. They were preparing to fire. "Incoming transmission from the lead ship," reported communications. "Put it through." Admiral Vextar's face appeared again. This time he was smiling, showing all those sharp teeth. "Captain Chen, you have 30 seconds to surrender. After that, my ships will open fire. Your primitive vessel cannot possibly survive what comes next." "Admiral, please reconsider. These are innocent people." "Innocent? They are humans. That makes them criminals by birth." 20 seconds. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about Earth, so far away. She thought about the colonies that were gone forever. She thought about the devourers, still coming, still hunting. 10 seconds, human. Sarah opened her eyes and looked directly into the camera. "Admiral Vextar, I am sorry for what happens next. Please know that we did not want this fight." The alien looked confused. "What are you talking about? Your ship is about to be—" Sarah cut the transmission. She turned to her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Kim, target their weapon systems. Only minimum power. I want them disabled, not destroyed." "Aye, Captain. Weapons ready." The 3 Imperial ships opened fire at exactly the same moment. Bright blue plasma bolts streaked toward the Indomitable. On the tactical screen, Sarah watched the enemy weapons approach her ship. "Shields up," she ordered. The plasma bolts hit the human ship's shields and simply vanished. There was no explosion, no damage. The Imperial weapons had no effect at all. On the bridge of the lead Imperial ship, Admiral Vextar stared at his screens in shock. His most powerful weapons had done nothing. The human vessel's shields hadn't even flickered. Sarah opened communications again. "Admiral, this is your only warning. Stand down your ships and let us pass. We do not want to hurt anyone." But she could see on the tactical display that more Imperial ships were coming. A lot more ships. The Admiral had called for help, and soon there would be dozens of enemy vessels surrounding them. The fight was about to begin. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical screens in disbelief. His weapons officer was checking the systems over and over again, but the results were the same. 3 Imperial Star destroyers had fired their main plasma cannons at full power. The human ship should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, the primitive vessel just sat there, completely undamaged. "Sir," his weapons officer said nervously, "all systems show direct hits on target. But their sensors, they're not showing any damage to the enemy ship at all." "That's impossible," Vextar growled. "Run a full diagnostic on all weapon systems." "Already?" "Done, sir. Everything is working perfectly. Our plasma cannons fired at maximum output. The human ship's shields just absorbed everything." On the main screen, the massive human battleship slowly turned to face his fleet. It was an ugly thing by Imperial standards. No graceful curves or artistic design. Just a long, dark hull covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. It looked like it was built for one purpose: war. The communication channel opened again. The human female appeared on his screen, looking as calm as if she were discussing the weather. "Admiral Vextar," Captain Chen said, "I told you we didn't want this fight. Your ships fired first. Please don't make me respond in kind." You will surrender immediately," Vextar shouted. "I don't care what tricks you're using. You're still outnumbered 3-1. "Admiral, I'm going to show you something. Please pay attention." The human ship's main gun turret moved slowly until it pointed directly at Vextar's flagship. The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. That weapon was enormous, bigger than anything he had ever seen. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Demonstrating human technology," Captain Chen replied. "I'm going to fire one round at minimal power. It will pass through your ship without exploding. Consider it a warning shot." "You wouldn't dare. If you fire on an Imperial ship, it will mean war between our species." "Admiral, my species is already fighting a war, one that makes your empire look like children playing with toys. I don't want to add you to our list of enemies, but I will protect the people on this ship." The human weapon fired. There was no flash of light or energy beam, just a small metal projectile moving incredibly fast. Vextar's ship shook slightly as something punched through the hull like it was made of paper. "Sir," his damage control officer called out, "we have a hole in decks 7 through 12. Perfect circle, 2 meters wide. No other damage. Whatever hit us went straight through without detonating." Vextar looked at the tactical display. The projectile had passed completely through his Star Destroyer and was now flying harmlessly into space. If it had exploded inside his ship, it would have killed everyone on board. "That was your warning, Admiral," Captain Chen said. "My next shot will not be so gentle." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vextar felt genuine fear. His species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had fought dozens of wars and won them all. Imperial technology was the most advanced in known space. But this human ship made his fleet look like antiques. "Who are you people?" he asked quietly. "We're refugees, Admiral, just like I told you. But we've been fighting for our survival against an enemy you can't imagine. That fighting has made us very good at building weapons. These devourers you mentioned, what are they exactly?" Captain Chen's expression became grim. "Machines, Admiral. Self-replicating artificial intelligence from another galaxy. They consume all organic matter to build more of themselves. They've been moving through our space for 5 years now, destroying everything in their path. How many ships do they have?" We stopped counting after 10 million. Vextar felt his blood turn cold. 10 million ships? The entire Imperial Navy had maybe 50,000 vessels. That can't be possible. "Admiral, 3 days ago I commanded a fleet of 200 ships. We were defending the Kepler colony, home to 8 million humans. The Devourers arrived with a force of over 1 million vessels. We managed to evacuate 50,000 civilians before our fleet was destroyed. I'm the only ship that survived. 1 ship against 1 million enemies? We didn't fight them all, Admiral. We ran. That's what humans have learned to do. We save who we can and run to fight another day. But eventually there won't be anywhere left to run." Vextar looked at his tactical display again. More Imperial. Ships were arriving every minute. Soon, he would have a dozen Star Destroyers surrounding this single human vessel. But if what the human captain said was true, "If your species is so powerful," he said, "why are you losing this war?" "Because there are too many of them, and not enough of us. Every battle costs us ships and people we can't replace. The Devourers just build more of themselves from the wreckage. We've been fighting a losing war for 5 years. And you want to cross Imperial space to reach where? The far rim territories. There are worlds there that might be safe for a while. Places where we can rebuild and prepare for the next attack." Admiral Vextar was quiet for a long moment. Everything he had been taught about humans was wrong. They weren't primitives playing with stolen technology. They were survivors of a war that made Imperial conflicts look like minor disputes. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, "High Command is demanding a status report. They want to know why we haven't destroyed the human ship yet." Vextar looked at the hole in his ship's hull where the human warning shot had passed through. If Captain Chen had wanted to destroy his fleet, she could have done it already. The fact that she was still talking instead of shooting meant she was telling the truth about wanting peace. but the High Command would never accept that a single human ship had made the Imperial Navy look helpless. Tell High Command that the situation is complicated, he said finally. Request additional forces for a full assault. How many ships, sir? All of them. Every available vessel in the sector. His communications officer looked shocked. Sir, that's over 40 ships. Surely one human vessel doesn't require— Do it, Vextar snapped. And tell them to bring the heavy dreadnoughts. He turned back to the screen where Captain Chen was waiting patiently. Captain, I'm afraid I cannot simply let you pass. Imperial law is very clear about trespassers, but I am curious about these devourers. If they are as dangerous as you claim, they could threaten Imperial space as well. They will threaten Imperial space, Admiral. When human resistance finally collapses, they'll keep coming. Your empire will be next. Then perhaps we should discuss an alliance against this common enemy. Captain Chen shook her head sadly. I wish that were possible, Admiral, but your High Command will never accept it. They see humans as inferior beings. They would rather die than admit they need our help. You may be right about that, Vextar admitted. But I still have my orders. When reinforcements arrive, I will be forced to attack. Then I hope your reinforcements bring something more powerful than plasma cannons, Captain Chen replied. Because the next time you fire on my ship, I will fire back. And, Admiral, I won't miss. The transmission ended, leaving Vexatar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked in nervous silence. Everyone had heard the conversation. Everyone understood what it meant. The Imperial Navy was about to fight an enemy they couldn't hope to defeat. And the worst part was, they were probably fighting on the wrong side. 6 hours later, the space around the human battleship was filled with Imperial warships. Admiral Vextar watched his tactical display with growing unease as more vessels dropped out of hyperspace. 12 massive dreadnoughts, their hulls bristling, with weapons. 37 cruisers of various classes, dozens of smaller destroyers and frigates. It was the largest Imperial fleet assembled in over 50 years, more than enough firepower to destroy a planet. All focused on one human ship. Sir, his tactical officer reported, final count shows 68 Imperial vessels now in formation. Fleet Admiral Korthax is requesting communication. Vexatar nodded grimly. Fleet Admiral Korthax was a legend in the Imperial Navy. A warrior who had conquered 17 star systems for the Empire. He was also completely ruthless and absolutely certain of Imperial superiority. The communication screen activated, showing the scarred face of the Fleet Admiral. Korthax had lost one eye in battle decades ago and refused to have it replaced. He said it reminded him that enemies could be dangerous if underestimated. Admiral Vextar. Korthax's voice was like grinding stone. Explain to me why you need an entire battle fleet to deal with one primitive human vessel. Sir, the situation is more complex than initial reports suggested. The human ship possesses advanced defensive capabilities. Our weapons had no effect on their shields. Impossible. Human technology is centuries behind ours. With respect, sir, I suggest you review the combat logs. 3-star destroyers fired at full power. The enemy vessel took no damage at all. Fleet Admiral Korthax studied his own displays for a moment. I see the hole in your ship, Vextar. How did that happen? The humans fired a warning shot, sir. A kinetic projectile that passed completely through my vessel without detonating. If they had wanted to destroy us, they could have done so easily. A warning shot? Korthax's remaining eye blazed with anger. Inferior creatures do not give warning shots to the Imperial Navy. They will learn their place. The Fleet Admiral opened a channel to all ships in the formation. This is Fleet Admiral Korthax to all Imperial vessels. We will show these humans what happens when primitives challenge the Empire. All ships will target the enemy vessel and fire on my command." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the Imperial fleet arrange itself for attack. Her tactical officer was counting enemy vessels and weapon systems. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Williams said quietly, 68 ships, over 3,000 weapons targeting us. Even our shields have limits." "I know, Commander. But those shields have never faced Imperial weapons before. We don't actually know their limits." "Ma'am, are we really going to fight an entire fleet?" Sarah Chen looked around her bridge at the young faces staring back at her. These people had families too, parents and siblings and friends back on Earth. But behind them, in the cargo holds, were 50,000 civilians who had no one else to protect them. "Commander, send a message to the Imperial fleet. Tell them this is their last chance to let us pass peacefully." The message was transmitted, but there was no response from the Imperial ships. Instead, Fleet Admiral Korthax opened a general communication channel. "Human vessel," his voice boomed across space, "you have 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally. Your ship will be destroyed and your crew taken prisoner as an example to other species who might consider violating Imperial space." Captain Chen activated her own communication system. "Fleet Admiral, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We are carrying civilian refugees who pose no threat to your empire. Please allow us safe passage. There will be no safe passage for criminals." "You have 15 seconds. Sarah looked at her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Kim, bring all weapon systems online. Target their command ship first, then work outward. Remember, we want to disable them, not massacre them." "Aye, Captain. All weapons. Ready? 5 seconds, Fleet Admiral Korthax announced. "Imperial fleet, prepare to fire." The space around the Indomitable suddenly blazed with light as 68 Imperial warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion torpedoes, and antimatter missiles all streaked toward the human battleship. It was enough concentrated firepower to crack a moon. The human ship's shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed the incoming energy. For a moment, the entire area was lit up like a small star. When the light faded, the Indomitable hung, in space completely undamaged. "Impossible!" Fleet Admiral Korthax shouted. "All ships, continue firing! Pour everything we have into that vessel!" The Imperial fleet fired again and again. Wave after wave of destruction hammered against the human shields. But the barriers never faltered. The Indomitable simply absorbed everything they threw at it. "Sir," the Fleet Admiral's tactical officer said nervously, "our weapons are having no effect. Their shields are still at full strength." Then we get, "Closer! All ships, move in and concentrate fire!" The Imperial fleet began moving toward the human ship, trying to overwhelm the shields with point-blank bombardment. That was when Captain Chen decided the demonstration had gone on long enough. "Lieutenant Kim, fire." The Indomitable's main railgun spoke once. A dense metal projectile accelerated to 30% of light speed crossed the distance to the Imperial flagship in a fraction of a second. It punched through the dreadnought's shields and armor like they weren't there, then exploded deep inside the ship's engine room. The massive Imperial vessel went dark as its power systems failed. Emergency lights flickered on as the crew tried. "To restore basic life support, target the next command ship," Captain Chen ordered calmly. Another railgun shot disabled the second-largest Imperial vessel, then a third. In rapid succession, the human ship methodically took out every command vessel in the enemy fleet. Not destroyed, disabled. The crews were alive, but their ships were helpless. "Sir," an Imperial communications officer called out, "they're launching fighters." Hundreds of small craft poured out of the Indomitable's launch bays, but these weren't ordinary fighters. They moved in ways that should have been impossible, changing direction instantly without slowing down. Their weapons were surgical in precision, targeting specific systems on Imperial ships. Within minutes, the entire Imperial fleet was dead in space, engines offline, weapons systems destroyed, communication arrays severed. The most powerful naval force in the Empire had been reduced to floating debris in less than 10 minutes. but not a single Imperial sailor had been killed. On the bridge of his darkened flagship, Fleet Admiral Korthax stared at his dead control panels in shock. Emergency power was keeping life support running, but everything else was gone. His mighty dreadnought was now just an expensive piece of space junk. A communication signal reached his ship. Somehow the humans had restored his communication array. Fleet. Admiral Korthax. Captain Chen's voice was calm and professional. Your fleet has been disabled, but your crews are unharmed. I'm transmitting repair instructions to your engineering teams. You should have basic systems restored within 6 hours. Why? Korthax asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why didn't you destroy us? Because we're not monsters, Admiral. We're just people trying to protect other people. Your crews have families too. I won't orphan their children just to prove a point. But your technology, how is this possible? Admiral, 5 years ago, human ships were barely capable of interstellar travel. Then the Devourers came. When you're fighting for the survival of your entire species, you learn to build better weapons very quickly. Fear is an excellent teacher. Fleet Admiral Korthax looked around his ruined bridge. His officers were staring at their screens in disbelief. The most powerful fleet in Imperial history had been swatted aside like insects. What happens now? He asked. Now we continue to the far rim territories. Your ships will be repaired and functional in a few hours. I suggest you report to your high command that human vessels should be given safe passage in the future. They'll never believe this happened. Admiral, I'm transmitting full tactical records of this engagement to your computers. Show them to anyone who thinks humans are still primitive. Maybe next time they'll choose to talk instead of shoot. The communication ended, leaving the Fleet Admiral alone with his thoughts. Around him, his officers worked frantically to restore basic systems. But Korthax barely noticed. He was thinking about the implications of what had just happened. If humans could do this to the Imperial Navy, what chance did the Empire have against these devourers the human captain had mentioned? What chance did anyone have? As the human battleship began moving away toward the edge of Imperial space, Fleet Admiral Korthax realized that everything had changed. The galaxy suddenly seemed much more dangerous than it had that morning, and much more fragile. The news spread through Imperial space faster than any ship could travel. Emergency communications networks carried the impossible story to every corner of the Empire. A single human vessel had destroyed an entire Imperial fleet without losing. A single fighter. On the capital world of Zephyr Prime, Emperor Zaxthul sat in his throne room reading report after report. Each one told the same unbelievable story. Each one was verified by multiple witnesses. Each one made his ancient empire seem suddenly very small and very vulnerable. Your Majesty, his chief advisor said nervously, the military council is demanding an immediate audience. They want to mobilize the entire Imperial Navy. To do what exactly? The Emperor asked tiredly. Send more ships for the humans to disable? Sir, surely this was some kind of trick. Or perhaps the humans have allied with another advanced species. Our own humans could never... Our own humans? The Emperor's voice was sharp with anger. Advisor Yexcon, these are not our humans. They are clearly a completely different species than the primitive servants we know. These are something else entirely. The Emperor stood and walked to the great window that looked out over his capital city. Millions of Zephyrians lived in the towers below. All of them believed their empire was the greatest power in the galaxy. None of them knew how close they had come to learning otherwise. Sir, another advisor entered the throne room quickly. We have a situation developing on the outer worlds. Some of our colonial governors are requesting immediate military reinforcement. Why? The human ship has been broadcasting messages as it travels through our space. They're offering medical aid to any Imperial colonies that need it. Several, worlds suffering from the Red Plague, have already accepted. Emperor Zaxthul felt a chill run down his spine. The Red Plague had been killing Imperial citizens for decades. Their best medical scientists had found no cure. If the humans could cure it, What kind of medical aid? Unknown, sir. But the reports are disturbing. The humans landed a single shuttle on Korak's 7th. Within 3 hours, they had completely eliminated a plague outbreak that had been killing thousands of our people for 6 months. How? We don't know. Our medical teams are analyzing their methods, but the human technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours. They use devices we don't even have names for. The Emperor sat back down heavily in his throne. First, military superiority that made Imperial fleets look like toys. Now, medical technology that could cure incurable diseases. What else could these humans do? Your Majesty, the chief advisor said carefully. There's something else. The human captain has been broadcasting her story about these devourers. Our intelligence analysts have been trying to verify her claims. And? Sir, we found traces of them. Long-range sensors in the border regions have detected artificial signals from outside our galaxy. Very faint, but they're there, and they're getting stronger. Emperor Zaxthul closed his eyes. In 3,000 years of Imperial history, they had never faced a threat from outside their own galaxy. The very idea was terrifying. How long before these devourers reach Imperial space? If Captain Chen was telling the truth about their expansion. Rate, maybe 2 years. 3 at most. The throne room was silent for a long moment. Outside, the capital city continued its daily life, unaware that everything was about to change. Meanwhile, on the outer rim of Imperial space, the human battleship Indomitable continued its journey. But its mission had evolved. Captain Chen was no longer just trying to reach safety. She was trying to save lives. Captain, Communications Officer Park reported, we're receiving distress calls from 17 different Imperial colonies. Plague outbreaks, natural disasters, equipment failures they can't fix. They're all requesting assistance, and all of them mention that their local military commanders have been ordered not to interfere with us. Someone in the Imperial government is letting us help. Captain Chen nodded. It made sense. After the demonstration against Fleet Admiral Korthax, no Imperial officer wanted to fight her ship. But more importantly, the Empire was starting to understand what humanity could offer. Dr. Martinez, she called to her chief medical officer, how many medical shuttles do we have available? 6, Captain. But if we're going to help 17 colonies, we'll need to prioritize. Some of these outbreaks are worse than others. Send shuttles to the worst cases first. And Dr. Martinez, make sure our medical teams share their knowledge with the Imperial doctors. These people need to be able to help themselves after we're gone. Aye, Captain. As the human medical shuttles dispersed to Imperial colonies, word of their miraculous healing spread even faster. Imperial citizens who had been taught to hate and fear humans were now welcoming them as saviors. Children who would have died from incurable diseases were playing in the streets again, but not everyone in the Empire was happy about this development. In the military command center on Zephyr Prime, General Torvax slammed his fist on the table. Hard enough to crack it. This is intolerable, he roared. The Empire does not accept charity from inferior species. Our reputation will be destroyed. General, Admiral Lextar said carefully, perhaps we should consider the strategic implications. If these humans are telling the truth about the Devourers, there are no Devourers. This is obviously a human trick to make us appear weak. They attack our fleets and then offer medical aid to make themselves look merciful. It's psychological warfare. Sir, the sensor readings from the border regions could be faked. Human technology is obviously more advanced than we thought. They could be creating false signals to support their story. Around the table, other military leaders shifted uncomfortably. General Torvax was a war hero, but his hatred of non-imperial species was well known. He had built his career on the idea that the Empire was naturally superior to all other races. General, Admiral Lextar tried again. I've reviewed the tactical data from the engagement with the human ship. Their weapons technology is decades ahead of ours. Their shields are impenetrable to our weapons. If they wanted to conquer the Empire, they could probably do it with a few dozen ships. Exactly. Torvax stood and began pacing. Which is why this is clearly a trap. They show us their superior technology to intimidate us. Then they offer medical aid to win over our civilian population. Soon our own people will be begging us to surrender to these benevolent humans. But what if they're telling the truth? About the Devourers? Torvax stopped pacing and stared at the Admiral. Then we fight them the same way we've fought every other enemy in Imperial history. With courage, honor, and Imperial steel. General, if the humans can barely fight these machines with their advanced technology, what chance do we have with ours? We are Zephyrians, Torvax's voice echoed through the command center. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We do not bow to alien threats no matter where they come from. The meeting broke up with no resolution. Half the military leadership wanted to prepare for war against the Devourers. The other half insisted it was all a human deception. The Empire was fracturing just when it needed unity most. In his private quarters that night, Emperor Zaxthul reviewed intelligence reports about the human ship's journey through Imperial space. Every colony they had visited reported the same thing: miraculous healing, shared knowledge, and gratitude from Imperial citizens. But there was something else in the reports, something that worried the Emperor more than human military superiority or medical technology. Hope. For the first time in generations, Imperial colonies were reporting that their people had hope for the future. The humans had shown them that incurable diseases could be cured, that impossible problems could be solved, that there were people in the galaxy who would help strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. Emperor Zaxthul realized that this might be the most dangerous thing of all. An empire built on the idea of natural superiority could not survive if its people started believing that superiority could be earned through compassion and knowledge rather than conquest and fear. The human ship was doing more than crossing Imperial space. It was changing the way Imperial citizens thought about their place in the galaxy, and once that change began, there would be no stopping it. 3 weeks after the human battleship had first crossed into Imperial space, Emperor Zaxthul stood before the greatest decision any Imperial ruler had ever faced. In his private study, spread across a massive table, were intelligence reports that would change the course of galactic history. His chief intelligence officer, Spy Master Veltar, pointed to the most recent documents. Your Majesty, our long-range sensor stations have confirmed Captain Chen's story. We've detected massive artificial structures moving between galaxies. The energy signatures match nothing in our databases. How many structures? Conservative estimate? Over 50 million individual objects, each roughly the size of a battleship. They're moving in perfect formation toward our galaxy. Emperor Zaxthul felt his blood turn cold. 50 million ships. The entire Imperial Navy had maybe 50,000 vessels, and most of those were patrol craft and transports. How long before they arrive? If they maintain current speed, 18 months. Maybe 20 at most. The Emperor walked to his window, again, looking out at his capital city. In 18 months, all of this could be gone. Every building, every citizen, every trace of 3,000 years of Imperial civilization could be consumed by machines from beyond the stars. Sir, Veltar continued, there's more. Our agents on the border worlds report that human refugees are arriving daily. Not just military ships, but civilian transports packed with families. They're all fleeing in the same direction, away from something they call the Dead Zone. Dead Zone? Apparently, it's what they call space that the Devourers have already passed through. According to refugee reports, these areas are completely empty. No planets, no moons, no asteroids. Nothing but empty space where star systems used to be. Emperor. Zaxthul closed his eyes. He had ruled the Empire for 40 years. He had seen wars, plagues, natural disasters, and political upheavals. but nothing had prepared him for this. "Your Majesty," his communications minister entered the study hurriedly. "The human ship is approaching the capital system. Captain Chen is requesting permission to enter Zephyr space." "She's coming here?" "Yes, sir. She says she has important information for the Imperial government. She's also offering to meet with you personally." The Emperor looked around the room at his advisors. These were the most intelligent people in the Empire, and they all looked terrified. "Sir," General Torvax entered the study without being announced, "I strongly advise against meeting with the human captain. This is obviously a trap. She's going to try to capture or assassinate you." "With what army, General?" Emperor Zax Thul asked tiredly. "Her ship could have destroyed our entire capital defense fleet by now if that was her intention." "Sir, we cannot show weakness by negotiating with aliens. The Empire has never bowed to foreign powers. The Empire has never faced extinction either." The argument was interrupted by another urgent communication. The duty officer's voice was strained with panic. "Your Majesty, urgent message from Fleet Admiral Korthax. He says it's classified at the highest level." "Put him through." The beaten admiral's face appeared on the main screen. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 weeks. "Your Majesty," Korthax said formally, "I have disturbing news from the Outer Rim territories. Our border defense stations have gone silent. All of them. Technical malfunction? No, sir. We sent scout ships to investigate. The stations are still there, but..." Korthax paused, struggling to find words. "They're empty, sir. Not destroyed. Empty. Like everything inside them just vanished." Emperor Zaxthul felt a chill deeper than anything he had ever experienced. "How many stations?" 12 so far, all in the same sector where our sensors detected those artificial signals. "Sir, I think the Devourers have arrived early." The study was completely silent. Everyone was staring at the Admiral's image, trying to process what they had just heard. "Any word from the civilian populations in that sector?" the Emperor asked quietly. "That's just it, sir. There are no civilian populations. The planets are still there, but they're empty, completely sterile, like nothing ever lived on them." General Torvax stepped forward. "Admiral, how many ships do you have in that sector?" "None, sir. I've pulled back all our forces to defensive positions. Based on what happened when we fought the human ship, our weapons would be useless against this enemy." "You're retreating without fighting?" "General, with respect, I've seen what advanced technology can do to Imperial fleets. I'm not going to waste ships and lives on a hopeless battle." Emperor Zaxthul made his decision. "Admiral, fall back to the core systems. Establish a defensive perimeter around the most populated worlds. General Torvax, mobilize every available ship and army unit." "Yes, sir. Finally, we're going to fight." "No, General. We're going to prepare for evacuation." The General's face turned purple with rage. "Your Majesty, we cannot abandon the Empire. We must stand and fight." "With what, General? You've seen the reports. Our weapons are useless. Our fleets are helpless. The only people in this galaxy who have successfully fought these machines are the humans." "Sir, you cannot seriously be considering..." "I'm considering survival, General. The survival of our people, our culture, and our civilization. Everything else can be rebuilt." Emperor Zaxthul turned to his communications minister. "Send a message to Captain Chen. Tell her I will meet with her immediately. Arrange for her shuttle to land at the Imperial Palace." "Your Majesty, General," Torvax said desperately, "you're making a terrible mistake. History will judge you as the Emperor who surrendered the galaxy to aliens." "History will judge me as the Emperor who saved his people when no one else could," Zaxthul replied. "And General, if you cannot accept that, you are relieved of command." 2 hours later, a small human shuttle landed in the courtyard of the Imperial Palace. Captain Sarah Chen stepped out wearing a simple military uniform with no weapons. She was escorted through halls lined with Imperial guards who watched her with mixtures of fear, curiosity, and grudging respect. The throne room was enormous, designed to intimidate visitors with the power and majesty of the Empire. But as Captain Chen walked across the polished floor toward the throne, Emperor Zaxthul realized how empty it all seemed. "Your Majesty," Captain Chen said, offering a respectful bow. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Captain Chen," the Emperor replied, "I understand you have information for us." "I do, sir, but first I want to apologize for the damage my ship caused to your fleets. We didn't want to fight, but we had no choice." "I understand, Captain. We're protecting civilians. That is admirable." "Your Majesty, the Devourers have entered this galaxy. My long-range sensors detected their scout ships 3 days ago. The main fleet will arrive within 6 months." Emperor Zaxthul nodded grimly. "Our intelligence confirms this. Several of our border systems have already been consumed. Sir, I'm here to offer humanity's help. We've been fighting these machines for 5 years. We know their weaknesses and their tactics. More importantly, we know how to evacuate populations quickly when resistance isn't possible." "What are you asking in return?" Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. "Nothing, Your Majesty. We're not asking for territory or resources or political concessions. We're asking for the chance to save lives. Why? Why would you help the Empire that tried to destroy you? Because every person in this galaxy deserves to live, sir, even the ones who see us as enemies. The Devourers don't care about politics or species or ancient grudges. They just consume everything organic they encounter. If we're going to survive, we have to work together." Emperor Zaxthul stood from his throne and walked down to stand directly in front of the human captain. She was smaller than he had expected, but there was something in her eyes that reminded him why his fleets had been helpless against her ship. "Captain Chen, what you're offering goes against everything the Empire has stood for. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Our people believe we are naturally superior to all other species." "Your Majesty, superiority means nothing if everyone is dead. The Devourers have already consumed over 200 human worlds. Each one thought they were safe until the machines arrived." The Emperor looked around his throne room at the symbols of Imperial power carved into the walls. Conquest, dominance, the natural order of strong ruling weak. All of it meaningless now. What do you need from us, Captain? "Access to your transportation networks, permission to coordinate evacuation efforts, and most importantly, a joint command. Structure that puts saving lives ahead of political considerations. You're asking me to place Imperial citizens under human authority. I'm asking you to place Imperial citizens under the authority of people who know how to keep them alive." Emperor Zaxthul was quiet for a long time. Around the throne room, his advisors watched nervously as their leader wrestled with the hardest decision in Imperial history. Finally, he spoke. "Captain Chen, as Emperor of the Zephyrian Empire, I formally request military alliance with the United Earth Forces. We place our fleets, our resources, and our people under joint human-imperial command for the duration of this crisis." The words echoed through the throne room like thunder. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire had admitted it needed help. "Your Majesty," Captain Chen said quietly, "you won't regret this decision. We'll save everyone we can,